transport and welfare services. A yes vote could see Switzerland leaving its free movement agreement with the European Union. Scrapping the bilateral treaty, critics say, would be a disaster for the Swiss economy. It's a high-stakes referendum, and an unusual one too. No country has ever voted explicitly to cap its own population. Dominic Velitis for CBC News, Bristol, England.
That warning system at Sydney's Coogee Beach in Australia after a woman was critically injured in a shark attack. 35 stabilized her on the sand. Another Michelle Donahoe was on the beach and says the incident has left her reeling.
Completely, shaken because we're in the water here all the time. We train here, we swim out in that very spot pretty regularly. So just in shock.
Authorities in Sydney have closed area beaches for 24 hours as police boats and helicopters patrol the water. Ottawa wants to block young teenagers from using social media. The federal government is proposing a ban for anyone under 16 unless tech giants scrub their platforms of addictive features and prove their products are safe. As Catherine Cullen tells us, the culture minister expects a fight from the tech industry and political resistance from Washington.
We know that it isn't safe, it is toxic out there.
Culture Minister Mark Miller says it's high time to ban those under 16 from social media.
What a beautiful day.
Companies can prove their products are safe enough. That would
Going out for breakfast.
Features like infinite scroll. The minister says he hopes the ban will be in place by early next year. And he doesn't.
Sorry about the orientation. I'm just doing some tests.
Before having bans imposed on them.
This is an uphill battle for them, and they have a lot to prove.
The bill also includes potentially enormous fines for breaking the rules, up to 3% of a company's global revenue. Despite previous pushback from tech companies, Miller suggests there are ways of keeping everyone on one side of the law.
Seize assets and sue people in other jurisdictions. That's doable. The most important part of this is making sure they're compliant in the first place.
Taylor Owen says there is reason to think the companies will meet the government standards. He's the director of McGill Center for Media, Democracy and Technology.
We are not asking for very many things in this bill that aren't already being complied with in other jurisdictions.
In a statement, a Meta spokesperson reacted to the ban by calling such moves counterproductive. It also says the company, which owns Facebook and Instagram, is encouraged to see the government recognizes the value of online services with sufficient safeguards. There's also the question of Canada facing possible blowback from the Trump administration over the ban, as it's important to put Canadian kids first. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Martina Fitzgerald. CBC News.
Time now for a look at the BC weather. Along the north coast, becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon with a high of 17. For the Peace region, sunny, some clouds in the afternoon, up to 23. For the central interior,
It's gonna be a
mainly
beautiful
sunny,
day.
23. For the southeast, a chance of showers, then a mix of sun and cloud, highs 22 to 24. For the southern interior, mainly sunny, a high up to 28. And for the south coast, sunshine, highs from 23 up to 29 degrees inland in Metro Vancouver. Young people's engagement with the online world is the largest fully unregulated clinical trial affecting human development in the history of human civilization.
Experts like that doctor from Toronto Sick Kids Hospital have been ringing the alarm about kids' use of social media. Well, now the federal government has responded with a ban. But Catherine Cullen, in this week on the House, we're going to ask the minister leading the charge, Mark, how's the ban going to work? And does the government expect big tech to comply? Also, nice new bridge you got there, Canada. It would be a shame if you couldn't open it. Okay, no one's actually said that about the Gordie Howe Bridge, but is Donald Trump trying to use the massive new structure to get more money out of Canada? Our political strategists try to make sense of what's going on. Plus,
This is the courtroom.
I mean, it takes you that way.
Yes.
Coming through that
It's
door.
magnificent.
We go into the chamber of the Supreme Court of Canada with the Chief Justice just before the building closes a decade of renovations. We'll also talk about whether it's
something.
The House is now in session.
I think it's going to be pretty difficult to enforce, but I think it's worth giving a shot.
I don't think the government should get involved in something about the kids. I feel it's like the parents' job to teach them.
Some teens may not be sold on the idea, but Canada is officially going to ban social media accounts for kids under 16. It's part of a new bill from the federal government called the Safe Social Media Act. But that ban may not be permanent. Under the bill, social media companies can ask to let teens use their apps again if the companies change their products to make them safer for young users. Just exactly what that would look like will be decided later by a new Digital Safety Commission. The plan leaves Carol Todd with mixed feelings. Her daughter Amanda died by suicide in 2012 after posting a video explaining the cyberbullying and extortion she faced for years. Carol says she's been waiting for the government to act for 14 years.
Amanda's predator had 22 profiles on Facebook that he talked to her with in the 2 years that he victimized her.
What a beautiful, beautiful day.
They should have had an algorithm that detects that one person making so many profiles from the same IP address, right? And there's still predators out there doing the same thing. So they can fix these things, and they have to be held accountable.
The bill also tackles AI chatbots, but doesn't ban them for kids under 16. Instead, chatbot operators will be required to have measures for specific risks, like a user expressing ideas of suicide or hurting other people. But the bill doesn't require those AI companies to report the interactions to police. There is still a lot we don't know. When will the ban actually take effect, and what exactly are social media companies supposed to do to make their products safe enough? Mark Miller is the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. We spoke Friday. Minister, welcome to the House.
Thank you.
You have been working on this legislation for months. What was it that you heard that convinced you that teens just shouldn't have access to social media apps in their current form?
Look, I've been convinced of this, Catherine, for years. As a father, what I want to do as a father is not something I could ever go as far as a legislator, but this...
Which is what?
Well, I like to take my kids' stuff and throw in the garbage. I think a lot of parents are like that. We look at some of the polling on the popularity of this age restriction, 90%, depending on who you ask, but 75 to 90% of the Canadians want this to happen. There are some people who want this to be for kids that are 18 and under. That just would be replacing the role of me as a legislator, the federal government, the state, for the role that parents have to play. You're striking a balance here between a bunch of important interests, including freedom of expression, the ability of kids to learn online, the modern reality of technological experience that kids have. And an under 16 age restriction is something that aligns with what we think is important for Canadians, but also standards that are developing across the world, including in Europe and in Australia. This is a layered approach. There's a lot of talk about a minimum age restriction. It is something that we do need to talk about, as well as what may be a certain ability to have safe harbors or ability to have a safe platform. We believe these platforms and AI chatbots can and should be safe by design, and that's an important layer of this, because if there are workarounds, and certainly there are, knowing the way kids are, knowing the way I was as a kid, you actually need a safe experience online that kids aren't having today.
Okay, we are going to dig into all of that, but I want to start with a very basic thing that frankly is still not clear a couple days after you've announced this legislation, which is the timeline of the ban. There's been some confusion around it. Should Canadians expect that this ban on these social media accounts will go into effect
I'll be right
the
back.
moment this
I
law
have to go
passes?
grab something.
So the moment, there's a distinction between when a law passes and when a law comes into force. And technically, according to the law and the words that's in the legislation that I put in the House on Wednesday, it comes in through a government and council decision. That decision will have the usual suspects of social media platforms that will be banned until they can prove to us that they can create and have a safe experience for kids. So
I really want to focus on the when, because I think for folks at home, like I appreciate, sort of royal assent, governor and council. What can you say to Canadians about what the timeline is for this? Are we talking 2 years? Are we talking 6 months? What could this look like?
So a lot doesn't depend on us. It depends on the House of Commons passing this, yes, and then obviously the Senate that we don't control, nor should we control. So there's a timeline there, assuming that passes in a regular time frame, and I don't underestimate the capacity of some people to stall these things. But we would expect, as soon as that gets royal assent, to have a very rapid governing council process where we identify these platforms that everyone knows anyway and have them banned.
So again, I'm going to go for folks at home. You're hoping what, early next year, that kids won't be on social media accounts if they're under 16?
I'd like this, I would have liked to get this passed yesterday, but I did put this in front of Canadians to have a discussion for the summer. There's a reason we put this on the order paper at the end of this parliamentary session. It's important for us to have a conversation as a society about this. There's space during the summer and there's space during the fall to have the proper parliamentary process observed. I don't want this to be a divisive bill, Catherine, and we do have a majority in Parliament. We don't want to ram this through. There are Conservatives that have different ideological.
The pasta? Oh, No, I forgot something. That's my landlord. She's crazy.
You're taking the time.
Whatever.
So,
Let's go.
Early next year is the hope. What would you say to parents right now who want to know what this
I would
means for
love
them?
to see this in force by early next year.
The plan here is that the social media companies could start letting those under 16 have accounts again if, as we said earlier, they implement measures to make. Can you give us some examples, help people see what would a safe account look like compared to now? What are some of the primary examples of things you hope to see gone?
Look, if you believe and I certainly do, what's coming out of some of the lawsuits in the U.S., it is proven that these platforms designed social media to be addictive to kids. We would want them to approach us and have a process to show us how these platforms can be safe, including the ubiquitous doom scrolling that we see, perhaps limits on screen time, making sure the content is safe and it is not harmful. There's 7 broad categories in the bill, most of it targeted towards kids, but extreme acts of hatred, extreme acts of violence, terrorism, that platforms now have a duty, part of 3 duties, to remove harmful content, most sexual in nature, underage sexual distribution of images, duty act responsibility, duty to protect kids. We would like to see those factors integrated into a platform that would be targeted towards kids and to show us that it is safe. This is a process that is long from resolved. We know that it isn't safe. It is toxic out there. There will be a number of platforms that will be banned until they can actually come to us and say, hey, look, this is safe. So too with AI chatbots.
And I really do want to talk about AI chatbots, but I just want to again stay with whether it's teens who are listening or parents who want to understand what this could look like. The social media companies obviously heard your announcement the other day. Could they clean up their act in such a way that they never get banned? That by the time this comes into effect, they've gotten rid of auto scroll and infinite play and all of these things, and you say actually kids can still have their Snapchat, Instagram account.
No, possibly, but I'm highly skeptical that if the past is proof of further action. This is an uphill battle for them, and they have a lot to prove. If you trust the lawsuits that are coming out of the States, if you trust parents and emergency room doctors who I talk to, and it's rare to see me observe an emergency room doctor in a state of panic because they're level-headed people. When they see the kids coming into their emergency rooms, they're panicking, and that is something that we need to keep positive and listen to the experts. I would listen to doctors. They will tell me that 10 years ago, they babysit 1 kid a week in emotional distress, high anxiety, clinically, and not just some kid that's stressed out. This is a more than daily occurrence. And the worst
in part because your government is trying to encourage AI right now? I mean, we just had the AI strategy last week. Are you trying to not be giving two contradictory messages at once? Hey, Canadians embrace this technology, but not you kids.
No, I think social media platforms are different. They're studied compared to AI chatbots. They're a relatively new technology that doesn't have that same mass social interaction that you see with social media platforms.
What is it you need to know that you don't? Because I think we have a sense that there's potential for something insidious here when we see this sycophancy.
So it's true that if we passed a law like this a year ago, Catherine, we probably wouldn't be talking about AI chatbots. And indeed, countries that are way ahead of us on this are struggling to keep up with new technology and integrating AI chatbots into the law the way we are doing, making sure they're safe by design, protecting kids, and in some cases perhaps taking down offensive material. But it is often a one-on-one process. There is a role that goes over and above what social media does. You're learning from AI chatbots. Is it the best thing to use in a classroom as opposed to a teacher? That's a discussion mostly for provinces, but for us as parents. But they are different animals, and I think we have to start from that point and work out from there. We know that a ban is desirable for social media platforms. There's a discussion as to whether perhaps it should be had with respect to chatbots. We didn't retain that option as a policy discussion, but it's not like we didn't think about it. What we think AI chatbots can do is to do the very basic minimum that we're asking social media platforms to do, this way in a different way, but make these things safe by design, not counsel kids to die by suicide, as an extreme example, but we believe that this can be much safer.
There is an onus on social media companies to label synthetic content like deepfakes. Why aren't you asking AI chatbots, which create synthetic content, you can ask it to make you a picture of any darn thing, to mark when their content is synthetic too?
That's a good question, and it is a possibility that we could explore. Again, with AI chatbots, we're sort of on the cutting edge of technology, and we wanted to make sure that we were getting the balance right. But it isn't something that isn't desirable or that we wouldn't entertain, but it isn't part of what was retained.
In closing, banning social media accounts for big swaths of the population. Obviously, this is not going to make the big tech companies particularly happy. That means it might make Donald Trump angry. Did you consider the possibility that this piece of legislation could tick off the Trump administration? That there could be negative consequences for Canada as a whole economic?
First and foremost, we're thinking about Canadian kids, and I don't want to presume that the U.S. administration doesn't think about their own kids. I think if you look at the posture that tech companies are taking on other policy decisions that we've taken, it is different than at least the letters or private statements that we receive from companies being neutral or cautiously optimistic with respect to this law, because there's a sense that there is a balance and an opportunity to get things right. Kids aren't on the bargaining table. That's a hard stop. Americans care about their kids. They have laws in Congress that are going through the process. But again,
what the hell is going on over
Did you have to
here?
ask yourself, okay, this is what's right for
Search
Canadian
and
kids,
rescue?
and it's worth the blowback?
I think at the end of the day,
Wow.
that's an
Something
obvious
must have happened here.
thing for me. But again, we are focusing on Canadian kids, and we'll continue to focus on Canadian kids. The U.S. does care. Like, I don't want to presume that this is going to be an adversarial process, but I'm not naive either. So maybe, but the principal focus and the focus will always be on Canadian kids.
Minister, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you.
Culture Minister, Mark Miller. Has U.S. President Donald Trump turned Canada's newest bridge into a bargaining chip?
I can't see any other explanation why this would not have moved forward but for Donald Trump's intervention to say that he will not staff and allow this bridge to open. We just have to keep reminding him, sir, you did not pay for this bridge. Canadians paid for this bridge, and I don't want to see our government go on bent knee to the White House to get this bridge open. We'll wait for a good deal.
The mayor of Windsor, Ontario, Drew Dilkin, certainly sees a political motivation when talking to our colleagues on CBC's Power and Politics. The major economic hub to connect Windsor and Detroit, Michigan, has been in the works for years, and Canada spent big bucks to make it happen, $6.4 billion to fund all the construction. The ribbon cutting was supposed to happen Friday. The invitations had gone out, but it never happened. Mark Carney says there's no big drama, just some technical issues being sorted out with the Americans. Trump, though, has previously said he wants the United States to be compensated. How can Canada get out of this tricky situation without, as the mayor put it, going on bended knee to Trump? Marcy Sirks is a former senior advisor to
Trump's
Justin
an
Trudeau and the
asshole.
chief strategy officer at Compass Rose. Kate Harrison is a conservative strategist and vice chair at Summa Strategies. We spoke Friday. Glad to see you both.
You too.
Hey, Catherine. Marcy, I'm going to start with you. So on Tuesday, the Prime Minister was saying, oh, the bridge will open by the end of the week. By Friday, it's technical stuff. No big drama here. How big a deal is this really, do you think?
I think listeners can be forgiven for feeling dizzy if they feel dizzy coming out of this week, because it has been a non-stop chaos machine all week. Certainly the bridge is a very tangible example of what is clearly not going right in the relationship. There's really nothing, you couldn't design a better analogy for a bridge not being open between our two countries right now. But beyond that, I think what Mr. Carney is getting at, what the government is getting at, is let's also not overstate things. This particular circumstance probably will be ironed out, whatever it takes, because Canada is not going to walk away from its investment in the Gordie Howe Bridge. Canadian business needs it. Guess what? American business needs that corridor to be open as well. And perhaps in this instance, even more importantly, that American business needs that corridor open, and that is what ultimately will decide the fate of that bridge, which will be a positive one. It will open and it will be a meaningful shift in how these two countries operate. But back to Mr. Carney and his statement, again, let's not overstate things. There is a back and forth. There's clearly more dialogue now than there has been in some time. I noted the minister measuring some of that dialogue by the hours, but more importantly and overarchingly, there is dialogue, and that's a good thing. And that is actually where we need to be between now, certainly in the 1st of July and beyond. So again, we knew this was coming. Let's not get too heated. This is going to be a protracted conversation, and we're still in the early stages of it.
Kate, I want to pick up on something Marcy said, which is bridge is going to open whatever it takes. I mean, this is the question here. Donald Trump is obviously, it seems that he's trying to extract some kind of price. Should Canada be willing to make any concession, given, again, that Canada paid the whole cost of the building of the bridge, and once it is recouped that in tolls, Michigan is also supposed to get a portion of the tolls too. So there is a benefit here for the Americans.
There is. I don't know that this is entirely about the bridge. I think it's, I think Marcy said it was a good analogy for a much deeper problem. I don't know how